Hi everyone, Charlie here. And today I'm going to introduce you to a very old friend of mine, actually, who I wanted to make sure for this trip to Australia that I caught up with and had a little chat with him and shared his products with you. So I'll give you a little introduction in a minute, but I just wanted to give some background. So, 20 odd years ago, I used to have a wellness studio, a gym style. It was a very boutique fitness studio. It wasn't like a normal gym, and we really focused on health products like wellness products, not just health supplements. And I was lucky enough to be introduced also from an old friend, introduced to this gentleman and his wife, Rob Gourlay and Stephanie Gourlay, and have had the pleasure of being able to benefit from all their amazing health and wellness products that they've created over the many, many years that I've known them. And I wanted to share their products with you because I really feel that at this time that we're going through, there's more focus than ever before to take care of ourselves in a wellness way, and not just through the foods that we eat, not just focusing on the foods that we eat, and not about it. It's not about a losing weight thing. What I mean is wellness, health, and wellness from an energetics. I'm always talking about being really specific about our energetics and our health of our energetics, but also the energetics of the food and the water that we consume, which is what we're really going to talk about today. So I want to just give you a little bio discussion, little rundown of Rob and Stephanie from fion.com.au. Fion is in PHION.com.au, which is where you'll find all their products available. And they're available worldwide, Australia and worldwide. Okay, Robert and Stephanie Gourlay live on 110 acres in the pristine Mongalo Valley of New South Wales in Australia, and have spent the past 20 years developing their Fion health products. Robert, a scientist, is passionate about creating nutrient-dense products and structured, negatively charged water to support the human body's natural capability to regulate and heal at a cellular level. Their philosophy is simple: quality food and water are the pathway to health. Fion products aim to address the prime causes of disease and are researched and tested to capitalize on the fundamental link between healthy soils, plants, water, animals, and humans. In addition to the science, the products are created with awareness of the subtle energy systems of the body and the earth. Our primary role in business is to educate people on how to live a healthier and longer life without disease and expensive health costs, says Robert. From their Mongalo property, their products are freshly packed and dispatched to clients across Australia and the world. Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. And I just wanted to take this minute because I will switch over. The quality of the interview place where I was isn't fantastic. So I do apologize for the quality of the interview. So after this interview, stick around because I'm going to tune back in and show you the actual product that we're talking about, the negative charged MEA product that we're talking about for the water. I'm going to show you and give you a demonstration of what that looks like when it's working. So stay tuned to the end. And of course, like and comment, let me know what you think. And I'll see you at the end.
Look, actually, the property I'm living on at the moment is only 5 kilometres from where I grew up as a child. And I moved back here because it's just a lovely spot to live. You have all these four seasons. And so, one thing that, part of my growing up as a child was on a farm is that my parents, had all their own meat. We had beef and lamb and chicken and rabbit and fish from the river. So we never had to buy meat, and my parents grew as much veggie and fruit as possible. And my mother managed to get 5 boys that she had to raise to 17 when we all had to leave home, and not one of us had been taken to a doctor. So I reflected on this, way of living, because my mother only knew what she learnt from her mother and her grandmothers, and that she did a marvellous job, and raising 5 boys, and so. In around about my early 30s, I really got into this and studying natural health and well-being, and that got me onto a path. And it was only in my mid-30s I actually went to university. I thought, well, I better get a bit of paper against my name, and so after 6 years and completing a master's in applied science, I formed a business which is an environmental business, because my main thesis was on remote sensing and resource mapping and so forth. So I formed a company called Environmental Research and Information Consortium. And so then for the next 10 years, that was in 91, I was doing resource assessment, but in the background, I was spending a lot of time studying the biology of humans and just how things worked. And I'd already made a decision at 33 to not go and see doctors. And, I managed to get through life until I got to 75, when you get a letter from the Department of Transport that says, now that you're about to turn 75, you must have a medical to renew your driver's license. So I do have to see a doctor annually now. Anyway, I sort of worked a lot of things out. So I formed a business in wellbeing back in 2003. My wife and I moved on to property where we are at the moment. And that's so I could have access to, firstly, some space to grow food, and secondly, space to grow a business. So we started mainly with a probiotic. So the first thing I'd made was a probiotic. And I'd learned from other scientists, because I was traveling the world. I was already into the energy and structure of water. I wanted to know a lot more. I'd studied Schauberger, and I wanted to meet other scientists. And along the way, these scientists were telling me that they were making their own probiotics. And I just asked the question, well, why are you doing that? And I said, well, there's nothing on the market that's actually a true probiotic. A true probiotic needs to be a fermented, and liquid, because microbes are living things. They need water to survive, and they need food. So that's how I got started in that business. And now we have around about 70 health and wellbeing products. I run a clinic here, so I see people 3 days a week, advising about health and wellbeing, mainly around diet and lifestyle. So I've got basically a cellular scan system that gives me some information. But essentially, Charlie, my approach is, firstly was to take a different tack to the medical system, because they just want you to believe that you're a chemical system and therefore they can justify drugs. Well, one thing I've learned along the way, from other scientists, is the body is actually an electrical system, and the human body is an antenna really for negative charge. So if we go back to our ancestors, you say, well, how did our ancestors charge up their body? Well, it was quite simple, really. They lived by the banks of flowing rivers and drank flowing water. And I now know, because I've done these measurements, that when water is pristine, just like the river I grew up on, the Mongala River, and it's vortexing and it's encased in the Earth's magnetism, as is the ocean, it will carry a negative charge. So when we take that water out of the river system and put it into a tank or a reservoir, actually at around about 60 hours, it turns to a positive charge. So most people on this planet are drinking positive charged water. So I learned from Professor Korokov, a Russian professor from the University of St. Petersburg. I met him in 2008. He told me that most people are spending 50% of their energy every day converting positive charge water and food into a negative charge. So food, if you harvest food, let's say you take an apple off the tree, and I've actually done these measurements now, I know this is true. At 60 hours, the water in that apple, which is about 80 to 90% of its volume or weight, the water actually turns to a positive charge 60 hours. And in fact, it was Korotkov that showed me data that when we die as humans or animals, the energy that you've accumulated over your life that Korotkov called your soul, at 60 hours, everything goes zip. It's all left your body. So I now know that water, so we can class water as a living thing. The term living water or dead water was used, more than, probably 40 years ago, that term arose, and because of the understanding of the consciousness of water. So, the question to me was, well, how do we get around this issue of increasing negative charge in the body? Because your blood is carrying this charge around your body. For example, when oxygen comes into your lung, we don't actually breathe in oxygen. And Professor Pollock's got a new paper out on this now. We don't actually breathe in oxygen. The oxygen goes to the membrane of the lung, and it basically shakes hands with a capillary with a red blood cell in it and gives it some negative charge. Because when we breathe air in, most of that, only 21% of that air we breathe in is oxygen. All the rest is made up of mainly of nitrogen. So we're acquiring this negative charge in many ways. How do we, on a daily basis, maintain negative charge? Because the higher the negative charge, the healthier we're going to be. And longevity is, to me, linked to this ability to sustain negative charge. So this is where I've been going really in the last, the last 20 years, I guess. And this is what got me into structured water. So in my business, I've managed to get this nice link between the soil by producing biology for the soil and really charging up plants with biology and with charged water, right through to, from water security and water integrity right through to the human body. But the importance of water in the body. I think the most important thing we put into our body is water, and we should be putting, the water we're drinking should have a negative charge. So this water I've got sitting next to me here has got a negative charge in it. So I've developed devices that people can see on my website, devices to put a permanent negative charge into water. So I think I was the first in the world to do this because no one else has made the claim, and I've presented these results at international conferences now. And that was well received because most academics who are in this game are just studying the structure of water at a cellular level. So Professor Pollock and Korotkov, most of those guys are looking at the membrane surrounding a cell, which has a negative charge, and that water in our body actually is in a gel form, which is actually H3O2. So most of the water in our body, in most people, it's probably 50 litres or, and only 4 litres of our water is in the H2O form, which is, in our blood, albeit in a sort of plasma form. So I think once we start to lose negative charge by not having enough, not drinking this negative charged water, by not charging up our food, and you can do this just even if you buy your food from a supermarket, you can actually recharge it, and it's through a principle in physics called entrainment. So if you actually put the food into negative charged water, it will just entrain the negative charge from the water. So we've done this experiment many times. So we've put a whole range of things, into the water. So either cooking food in this water, or just, if you're not cooking it like an apple, you might, just put it in the sink and just entrain the negative charge back into it. And then as long as you eat that food within 60 hours, you'd be fine.
Can I ask you something, Rob? Sorry I just want to, just out of curiosity, and I think sometimes people, if this is new information for them, just to answer a few questions. So if people are new to this idea of negative and positive with water and that energy state, what would be some of the, like, how, if you're low on negative, are there certain symptoms, or is it just that you're tired, that your energy is spent elsewhere? Is there a way of, I mean, clearly what you're saying is most of us are, suffering in that negative kind of space of the energy, and we need it to be positive. But what would that mean to people in day-to-day life?
Well, I've produced many papers on this. The science of this would be, generally, Charlie, you're either fully charged or you're flat battery. If you're flat battery, you're going to feel tired. You're going to have brain fog. You're going to have regular health conditions. So the symptoms is just feeling lethargic, flat battery. That flat battery feeling.
Basically, what nearly everyone complains about feeling, and why we have so much coffee and
That's right, and that's why people go to a doctor, and they do all sorts of blood tests and other tests, and the doctor will say, "Well, there's nothing wrong with you." Well, there is something wrong. You're actually at flat battery, but the doctor is not trained in the electrics of your body. Your doctor's not going to talk to you about water or about the charge in food. Exactly. They won't even talk to you about the importance of sunlight, infrared light in sunlight that gives you negative charge. So we know from experimental work done by Pollock, if you shine infrared light on a cell, it will go from its resting state of about negative 25 up to negative 50, where it needs to be to make a new cell, or to do, it's where it needs to be for healing and repair. So there's a lot of information out there, but it's just that what I found, no one was bringing all this together. So this is what I do now, is run it into workshops, and I run a podcast. I don't run my own podcast. I get enough people asking me to do podcasts. I don't have to run my own.
But getting the information out there to have people saying, okay, it's not just about hydrating. That's not what you're saying. It's not about just hydrating your body. It's a different mechanism.
It is. I mean, hydration is important. And I say to people, if you want to know how much water to drink, you just take your weight in kilos, multiply it by 30, and you'll get the number of millilitres, and then divide by 4 and break the water down to drinking before a meal and not in the 1.5 hours after eating. Otherwise, you dilute your stomach acid. That then upsets digestion, which leads to poor absorption and assimilation. But hydration is important. But at the end of the day, all that matters about water is the negative charge. We need to forget about the chemistry. It's not relevant. At a cellular level, the chemistry is not relevant. You need minerals in water for it to particularly the electrolytes, to maintain charge, as your blood does, because your blood, requires around about 10 grams of sodium per litre. So these electrolytes in your blood help to sustain this negative charge. the other thing that's interesting about this, Charlie, is that, and I've just put out a newsletter from my, just this week, about the fact the heart isn't a pump. And when we were told this by Steiner back in 1920, and other people have done a lot of other work since then, and guys like Thomas Cowan and so forth have written books on this. And a friend of mine, Maxwell Fraval, has just put out a book about the heart saying exactly the same. So, if the heart isn't a pump, how does the blood get this energy to move around your body? Well, actually, the energy is actually in the blood. The blood has its own energy capacity. It can open valves, close valves, move out to a capillary and do a U-turn, come back to your heart. If the heart was a pump, it wouldn't be able to do that. So
yeah, I have to say I saw that newsletter and I had it written down here. I love it. The heart is not a pump, because it just, especially, I don't know, for me, there's a bit of a wellness and spiritual connection to that too, that you're really learning, the heart. We've learned so much about the gut being important now, that the heart is not a pump, but the fact that where it needs the energy that it needs and how we can look at it differently. I love that. So yeah, feel free to
I
connect.
think we need to have a whole new perspective on the heart. There's now good information to show that there's more information moving from your heart to your brain than the other way around. So the heart chambers actually hold frequency. So again, it's this exposure in our environment. So the environment now becomes important for your body. What's your body experiencing in terms of your environment? And it might be the people around you or just the environment you live in. That's why this property I live on, I can't see my neighbours, I can't hear them. I'm in nature. I just hear birds and frogs and, when staff are not here. But I live in a form of tranquility. And again, all of these environmental factors play a role in receiving frequency that you hold in the chambers of your heart. So you can do this with music. You can play 432 hertz Mozart, or just listen to the birds or the frogs singing out your receiving frequency, or just some time in nature. So these frequencies are actually held in the chambers of your heart. So if your blood's going through there, it's picking up these frequencies, distributing around your body. So, but this is basic knowledge that, children should be able to learn all of this, in their primary schooling. Before they get into higher education, they should know the basics of how the body works, but particularly they should know that with water, it's all about the physics, not the chemistry. This chemistry approach to water has forced people into buying filters, which to me are just rubbish bins for collecting sludge and transferring toxic energy to your body. So, and when I say this, people just think that a lot of people spent, thousands and thousands of dollars on buying filters and replacing the filter every year. But, we need to learn that our body is the best detox and filter system. This is why we have a liver that processes, blood 38 times a day, your blood, to clean your blood. So it's a bit like the flowing river, pristine flowing rivers that clean themselves. Well, your liver can clean your blood. And as long as you look after your health, as long as you don't have a fatty liver and your liver is fine, you don't try and wreck it. And as long as your gallbladder is working, you'll metabolize fat. And as long as your pancreas is working, you'll metabolize insulin. And then your overall detox system, which is primarily the function of your liver, will work, and you'll detox these chemicals that are in the air everywhere, Charlie. I mean, we can't escape chemicals these days. If you live in a city, you're breathing in hundreds of chemicals, and it's in the soil, because of the way food production is done these days. It's in the water catchment areas. And that's why, I promote the use of accessing groundwater to get, pristine water, and moving away from taking water from the river system, because nearly every river system globally now is polluted with chemicals.
Yeah, it's really hard to escape that. And I think, I guess, a question that comes up for me, and this might be even more of a personal one, but I'm sure it relates to lots of people. I travel a lot. I don't have a lot of control over, where I have
Yeah.
to buy food. I can't grow my own food. I'm still pet sitting, so I'm in other people's homes. So so I don't have, sometimes I have filtered water, sometimes I don't. Where can you start if you're in this situation? I can't change my environment in some senses, but obviously the water thing will really help to have that
Yes.
positive negative
I
change.
do travel a lot. In October, I was over in Portugal in Lisbon for a structured water conference.
Mhm.
And then I was in Germany with a scientist I'm working with on, we've just been doing the crystallography of my water to look at the crystal structures from coming out of the MEA devices. Um, so I do travel. So as a general rule, I think if you're traveling, my bottle top device, which you can, for example, you can buy spring water. And I advise people when they're buying spring water, try and find a water that's high in magnesium bicarbonate. I've written papers about this, and there are very good waters. They're often in older cultures called holy water or sacred water. But this water comes out of the ground with a negative charge on it, and it's a blue color. So that is the color of if you structure water, you put it into your bathtub, it'll be blue, a light blue color. So you know that the water is structured when it has that color. But so travel with a device to put a permanent negative charge into your water, because water is the most important thing you'll put into your body. Um, Secondly, I think it really then gets down to food selection. So I think the way that we cook food and prepare food has changed dramatically since I was a kid. For example, my mother, she didn't have electricity or gas. She just had a wood stove. So the meat was always slow cooked, just beautiful and tender meat. And I'd get home from school with my brothers, there'd be 5 bowls on the table, and we'd all sit down for stew. And I personally think it was the stew, it was the collagen that we're getting from this that gave us our health. But in the 1960s, everyone moved to barbecue, pan fried, grilled, baked, and fried stuff. And of course, this high heat then changed the fats and oils in the meat and formed toxic compounds. So in your body, this causes glycation, which leads to inflammation, which leads to disease. So again, when I'm traveling, I generally avoid any meat cooked in high heat. So if I find slow cooked meat, I will always have that. And I can remember the last time I was in San Diego for a conference in April of last year. I got talking to some guys about the need to have broth every morning, the bone broth from slow cooking. And one morning they said, right, we're going out for breakfast. We're not having breakfast. And they drove me, I don't know, must have been half an hour somewhere to a place where they actually served up bone broth, with for breakfast. Um, but also, I think selecting food that is fresh and organic.
Mhm.
Um, so try to avoid the junk food, obviously, because that food has high positive charge on it.
Right.
So again, it's about trying to get water and food that will contribute to the charge of your cells.
Mm.
So food that's within the 60 hours of harvest is best. But this is not easy when you're traveling. I know this, and that's why I'm always pleased to get back home to get back
I
into
bet.
fresh food. Uh, so it's just having the awareness, really, that
Yeah.
you need to have living water and living food.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? It doesn't really sound like it should be a miracle
Yeah.
cure, but it makes sense. No, that is really helpful. And I think, I mean, what I find really strange still is the fact that I don't know whether we're really getting anywhere with our ideas of health because as you know, I was, in the health industry as it
Mm,
was 20 years ago now, and I still see all these different things coming up about food and what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, and
mm,
and and yet what you're saying makes so much sense. And I think, to be able to go into that area of understanding, as you have always said, holistically, the body, now the frequencies, understanding the
yeah.
frequencies of our environment, and yet, you look at things in the supermarket and it doesn't really feel like a lot has changed at all. And I don't understand
No.
that.
Well, I think these days there's really nothing now in the supermarket that's actually of value.
Really not. No.
There may be, you may be able to buy some bottled water that's got it's high in magnesium bicarbonate. You could then put through my bottle top device. But
Mhm.
most of the fruit and veggies have been sprayed with chemicals. You may be able to find fish that are wild and and
Right.
fine, but the rest of it that's on the shelf is all processed. And look, again, this is where people need to understand the history. So when the tobacco companies really were feeling the pressure, back in the 70s, because they were causing addiction and all sorts of health problems. So they were pretty smart. They went out and bought food companies and managed to get then food to be addictive. So to do that they loaded it up with sugar and chemicals. And so this is the issue we're now facing: is that uh, a lot of the ultra processed food and the processed food can be addictive, and it's really the sugar that's causing the major problems in society. It's just too much sugar. And I tell people in my clinic the best diet is slow cooked meat, in the broth of the morning, which is the way we do it in our household, and fruit and veggies, and try and get the fruit and veggies as fresh as possible. But and just avoid the processed foods if you can. I think a lot of illness, particularly this issue I've talked about, glycation, inflammation, comes from um, the use of the seed oils, the high heat cooking in seed oils, the barbecue, pan fried, grilled, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I just find if you avoid it, and that's how I managed to get to 75 a couple of years ago, and not have a health condition. I had my medical, and they still couldn't find anything wrong with me. Most doctors, when they do a medical of a 75-year-old, they're trying to look for something. They're trying to put you onto cholesterol medication, blood pressure
Yeah.
medications.
Would have been disappointed almost,
Oh,
would
they
you?
would have been disappointed, yes.
Well done. That's good. I mean, I know that your lovely wife Steph is a great cook as well, so there's no.
Oh, yes. I live in a great restaurant here, Charlie. So
she's
we
she's
don't
very
have to go
talented.
out for meals. We
Mm,
we put a lot of effort into preparing good food, and
mm,
we can still have our wine, but
mm,
we'd have that before our meal, but even my wine and my whiskey I put through that bottle top device, because wine is
oh, wow.
83% water, and you can turn a $5 red into a $50 red by putting it through that. So um,
That's
so what
great.
I
I
do
never
is
thought that.
any wine I'll put through at least 24 hours or 48 hours before,
Mhm.
and just decanter it into a wine decanter. And I can tell you that it will never oxidize and turn to vinegar once it's been through that device. Never.
Wow, that's
It'll sit there for
amazing.
years and just still be drinkable.
Well, that in itself would be a huge selling thing for some people.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm.
And I do want to ask also, just because I'm looking again for myself as a bit of a personal
Mm.
question, got the chrome or the gold, the bottle top ones. Can you
Yes.
can you tell us a bit about the difference of that?
Yes. Well, chromium, um, which is an element on the periodic
Mm,
table,
mm,
chromium and vanadium actually are involved in helping you to metabolize glucose or sugars. And gold is important for your heart. You've only got to read Thomas Cowan's book, Human Heart, Cosmic Heart, to know the importance of gold for your cardiovascular system. In fact, I put colloidal gold into a number of my products, particularly my oxygen spray. So the difference is, we know by experimentation that when water goes through either the chrome or the gold, it will pick up the frequency of the chromium and the frequency of the gold and put it into the water. So I've had that validated actually in a university study. So the device, the way it's structured, is designed to pick up beneficial frequencies. So it's the same as putting my water out in the sun. It will entrain the frequencies of sunlight, of moonlight and starlight into the water. Or you could play some Mozart to it and it will entrain that in. So you can, and these days you can buy devices, you probably know, Charlie, you can buy devices and set up any frequency you like and sit your bottle or your glass of water on this device and entrain that frequency into it. So there's a lot of that. And I've got those devices myself. In my office, I can just sit my glass of water on that and then train whatever frequency I want to. But I now know, and this has been confirmed by testing of a scientist I'm working with in Dresden, that it does actually entrain these frequencies, and it produces, if you do the crystallography on it, it produces beautiful crystal structures. Wow. So we now know that the device entrains frequency, and it will exclude the bad ones. It will only take on the good ones, and so the device will do that. But the water that comes out of it has all the unique properties of water. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation on this that shows those results and describes the properties of structured water. So a lot of people are making claims, Charlie, that they're producing structured water, but I know they're not.
Right.
Because there's certain tests.
Yeah.
The one would be, does it have a negative charge?
Yeah.
Secondly, does it produce these beautiful crystalline structures? And is it permanent? There's other properties like water that's structured has antioxidant properties. So I've got in my PowerPoints tests where we put blueberries into structured water, my structured water, and the water today is still crystal clear, and the blueberries are in the same condition as when I put them in 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting you to say 7 or 8 years ago.
And where we put them into normal urban water, like we get from Braidwood, the local town, the water has turned black and the blueberries have oxidized and broken apart and mold forming on the inside.
That's amazing. What a test.
Yes. So I've now got people all over the world doing this experiment because they've seen and they're sending me the results. So.
Oh, that's great. Oh, no, I love it. And I know that you're a science man and you always have the data and you experiment and I love all that. And I know that people love that too. But my own little kind of my spiritual side is also coming in and thinking, isn't that just like water is life? It always has been, it always will be. And it's right there. And it's almost like we've just not even realized it, not even appreciated it, certainly not, been in gratitude for it. And here it is, and just saying it with these crystals and it's all this energy that it wants to give us. And it's almost like we're doing the opposite by the way we've consumed it. And I love that you're bringing this back in. I love it.
Well, one thing that science has lost, I believe, over the last 50 years is, science back prior to that would bring philosophy into science. And there would be a spirituality like, Steiner and so forth.
Exactly.
And what's happened in the education system in scientists, they're actually not taught really to think outside the box of their discipline and to bring this spirituality aspect in, or even to recognize it. But, there's a famous physicist who won a Nobel Prize, Richard Feynman, And one of his famous quotes was, "Never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot." And our universities are full of idiots, I can tell you. And the reason is that they're devoid of any spiritual or philosophical view that they can bring into their science. Mm-hmm. And you're right. When we look at the human body, I often say it this way. The human body is 99.9%, water molecules. And we're mainly water. So we can't say that a human is just H2O or H3O2. We have personalities, we have thought, and, where do our thoughts come from? We have consciousness. And we emit energy from our bodies. So, this is, what Korokov calls, your aura. And he was the one that introduced me to these ideas of measuring this light energy from the body, because it was the indicator of your health condition. So the quality of light coming from your body is a reflection of your inner health condition. So, but this sort of stuff is not taught at university, Charlie, and this is the whole thing, is that scientists need to be now having a conversation with the public and bringing science and spirituality and philosophy together, because it's only through this way that we'll actually understand how life works. Exactly. And the appreciation that water, it was Korokov that told me. I asked him the question because he's an expert in consciousness as well. I asked him, well, where's the highest level of consciousness? Well, I must admit it, when I asked him that question, we'd had quite a few red wines at that time. And he said, I think it's water has the highest level of consciousness. And I said, well, what's after that? And he said, well, probably microbes, followed by plants, followed by animals, and humans are probably at the bottom of the ladder in terms of consciousness. And perhaps that's why our body is mainly water. Mm. We need microbes where they're throughout our gut system and on our skin. We're covered in microbes. Yeah. And we need plants to eat for survival, to get nutrients. And we need animals, either as a pet or we eat meat or whatever. And we probably wouldn't have human consciousness without these other elements of consciousness as part of who we are.
Absolutely.
We could talk about the philosophy of life, all day long, but I think it's an interesting, part, and we can't just talk about the science, biology on its own, or physics on its own, or chemistry on its own. Mm. They never work on their own. There's no such thing as a silver bullet to health, and so without sunlight and without a good relationship with your environment, and also if we don't have enough tranquility in our life or stillness, we're going to get all sorts of issues as well. In fact, I know when they interview people who get to 100, and these centenarians, and you ask them, well, what's the secret of getting to 100? If you boil it all down, they will say it's tranquility.
Totally agree. They do. The quietness.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very true. The balance of all that.
Yes, a lot of cultures, and even in the Aboriginal culture in Australia, mm-hmm. they actually have a word for it. I forget what it is now, but they have a word which is for stillness. Mm-hmm. Which is time to sit down like under a tree and watch the river flow, and
I think it's Tadiri, Rob.
Yes.
It's the deep listening.
Yes, deep listening.
Yeah.
And having that time out to do that. And that's the other aspect of life, is that how many people say they're too busy to do something. Or take time out, or even to have a holiday, or to go down to the river and put their feet in the running water, or walk barefooted on the beach, or get up early in the morning to get some early morning sunlight in their eyes.
Exactly.
I hear people all the time just say, "Oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time for that."
Mm.
Well,
Yeah,
they do
it's
have
sad.
time. It's just that it hasn't been a priority for them.
It hasn't been a priority, that's right. And I've learned that very much about time is like, well, you make it a priority and then you have time. So
Yes.
I totally understand. And I love everywhere our conversation has gone. It's always so wonderful hearing you talk. I've been to a few of your workshops and I could
Mm.
listen to you all day. Of course, I'm conscious of the time. I know you have other people to see as well, but I just like in a kind of a summary. I mean, I think health has always been a focus for many people, but I think even just wherever the consciousness is headed, which everyone is agreeing feels a little bit crazy
Mm.
and a little bit intense. I think this message of what you're saying is even more important of, finding time to do those things and to listening to the frequency. Because as much as we've talked about water a lot, and we've talked about health a
Mm.
lot and the change in the body, it, even what you're saying about the heart, I'm hearing there's a lot about frequency and managing your frequency of who you're around, where you're at, being conscious of how you're charging your water and the food that you eat. And I love that message.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
this is really important. I often, say in my workshops that if you say to your heart, "I'm going to be happy," it says, "Okay, let's be happy." Or if you say, if you so the messages that you send to your heart and the environment that you're in, and if you're constantly, let's say in social media,
Mm,
following, a lot of the rhetoric out there
yeah.
and so forth, you're bringing this into your heart. You need to understand that your heart is listening and taking this on. So there's a lot of anger out there at the moment, and a lot of division. Politicians these days, engage in this process of divide and rule, and there's not a lot of compassion. So I think also we need time out. We need to take a break from this and come back to our heart and back to nature. We don't spend enough time in nature. So
Definitely.
even after we finish this conversation, I'm going out to my nursery where I grow my Australian native plants, and I'll be having a conversation with them. And um,
Good.
so I try and spend as much time as I can
Mm,
because during the work weeks it's pretty busy. And like last night, I did a podcast last night on groundwater with a group over in Western Australia. So I can get busy, but I do
yeah.
bring balance back in by just spending time out in nature. I'm just so glad I live in nature. I'm surrounded by it. I've got my dogs here. I can take them for a walk, and and I've got plenty of time for thinking and thinking through things, and that way, I can, for clients, I can help them a lot better if I'm well.
Mm,
They can see that,
yeah.
and and I can help them. And often I just explain how I did it.
Absolutely, that's
I
right.
don't have to be clinical in any way. I just say, well,
No,
this is my love story. This is how I did it.
yeah,
You can do this if you wish. You've got options. You've got choices in life.
yeah, and the results are you right in front of them.
Yes.
Beautiful,
Mm,
beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. I love the entire message.
mm.
Did you want to, just before I finish, is there anything you wanted to let people know? Like, I'm going to obviously put your website and everything details on
Yes.
on everything so they can access it. But you have sort of half mentioned, but what are some of the things, other services you have? You have products
Yes.
like,
Well, my business is mainly comprises, well, there's the biological products we make for
Mhm.
soil and for growing food. Uh, I've got the wellbeing business, which is either consultation and 70 odd products that we can send to people, like probiotics and so forth. And then we've got our water devices, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has just taken off. The global export of our devices has gone berserk in the last, ever
Oh, that's
since COVID finished, Charlie. I think
yeah.
there's been a great awakening about the importance of water and food and well-being.
Mm.
So, and also I've got a groundwater mapping and groundwater siting groundwater bores.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
there's a number of websites. Perhaps, Charlie, if I just send to you the links to my website, I
Sure.
might also send to you a link to some of my PowerPoints, particularly the one on water, because the water PowerPoint people can just download it and
Oh,
play it
that'd be
on.
amazing.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it does go in right down to the cellular level. It goes right into the quantum physics of water. You know, things
Hmm.
they would never read about.
Yeah,
So you can read books on structured water, but you generally get, one sort of angle. And I've been
yeah.
trying to bring it together is about water in life, about why you might want to swim in a pristine river, why you might want to swim in the ocean because it's all negative charge, but what
Mm.
the structured water does at a cellular level for your life. So I'll send you those links, and you can just get
Beautiful.
people to have a look. And I mean, if there's any others, I've all PowerPoints on a whole range of things. Like I even
Yeah.
run energy workshops here for people. I teach people how to dowse or
Oh,
divine,
wow. Oh,
and
good.
so we've got
That's
biological food production workshops and yeah, health and wellbeing workshops and a water. There's a story I tell in water. That's a full day workshop.
all right. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Yeah, and I really appreciate your time and all your wisdom. I know that
Well, thank
people.
you, Charlie. And it's great to catch up with you after all this time. It must be 20 years since
Yes.
we last spoke. And but thank you for reaching out. And
Yeah.
I'm always happy to share these messages and pass them on because it's just part of the education system. And these days, we have to take a leadership role in this education because you won't find it at school or university. So, and perhaps that's the amazing thing about the social media now is we can readily exchange information. We can be long distance apart. Um, but, everything in the universe is connected. We're all connected, and
Right.
we just need to be open to the messages and not get too caught up in the belief systems that are
Mhm.
perpetrated down through the education system.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that interview and learned a lot about the importance of not only water for hydration, which we very often focus on, but an amazing element, the water being alive, keeping us alive and energized. Now, since that recording, which was actually over a month ago, I purchased the adapter, the plug, which is this. So because I travel, I didn't purchase the bottles. If you see, have a look on the website, they actually have a package where you can purchase the bottles as well. I didn't do that because I travel too much. I don't want two big glass bottles with me. So I just purchased this by itself, which you'll see is a really handy little size. There's not much to it, right? But it's all in the science. Okay. That means that I just use my plastic bottles. I know there's a whole thing with plastic bottles, but I reuse them. And obviously there would be it's because I travel. There's probably alternatives, and I haven't found that yet. So you turn that, you put that, twist that on, and of course this one's the one with the water in it. So you twist that on, and then you get your empty one and you twist the empty one on, right? I'd also rather not use Mount Franklin, but it happened to be the only ones that I could get at the time. And then you do the twist and you get the vortex going. So you do the twist and you get the vortex going. There it is. That vortex going through is what changes the structure of the water. And this is now my well-structured, negatively charged water. And I have to say, it is a noticeable difference now. In the early days, it's not like it's not like a difference where, you have a coffee and you suddenly feel a bit, oh, you feel the coffee kick in if you happen to be one of those people. It's not like that. It's not like that feeling. It's just over time, if you have one a day or maybe more, it's not like you need a certain amount, you just whatever amount of water you have. I've noticed I haven't needed as much water as I used to because I feel like I'm actually hydrating now. I'll probably only have probably maybe one or two bottles of these a day, and that's fine for me. I'm not feeling dehydrated at all, but I also don't feel like I have a slump. I don't feel as though I'm carrying extra weight around with me. I don't feel like I need a nap in the afternoon. And that happened after a couple of weeks. And it wasn't until I looked back and I thought, oh, I actually am like energized. I don't feel that flat battery feeling that Rob was talking about. So for me, it's absolutely 100% made a fantastic change for my health. I feel as though I'm doing something better for my body. And the reality is, it's this size. I can carry it with me anywhere. I can take it on a plane without any problem. You know, so great. Why not? Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. There's no affiliate, there's no anything else. It's just my personal recommendation for the health and well-being of everyone. So love to all. Thank you all for watching. Fion.com.au and yeah, take care of yourself. Mwah. Bye.